Hi everybody, so I'm back with my post-through hike gear review, which if you watched my other gear reviews, you know I think this is one of the most important things that future hikers can watch because it really gives you an idea of what the essentials are, because I or anybody that where you're watching their post-hike gear review has been through 6 months of really field-tested equipment, gear, clothing, that sort of thing, and really can kind of tell you what you need and what you don't need. And what I would do before I went on my through hike is I would watch through hikers pre-hike videos and then their post-hike videos, gear videos, and see what the differences were. And that really, I saw a lot of similarities among through hikers, what they didn't come back with. And that gave me a little less, it helped me with my fears about what I would need and what I wouldn't need. And I was able to get my pack down because of it. But I was still able to get rid of more along the way. So I'll be sharing all that. But before I get into it, I wanted to share with everybody, because I know not everybody's going to want to watch all the details that are in my bag, which will probably take 45 minutes. But I thought what I would do is just in the beginning talk a little bit about what I learned philosophically from carrying a backpack and the weight, because I think it's something that I don't really hear a lot about. And somebody asked me the question after that last video. They said, I'm going on my through hike in a couple months, and if you had one piece of advice, what would it be? And I wrote to them, I thought about it a lot, and this might change in the future, but the one piece of advice that I thought was most valuable was to spend as much time as possible lightening the gear in your pack, but also lightening your mind from things that aren't serving you anymore, whether they be, old attitudes or stress from your job or whatever. Lighten that as much as possible before you go on your hike, and then continue the process of letting things go along the way. And I found that I did that. I talked about it in one of my videos, and it was so valuable because it really taught me so much about materialism and what we need. And I've came back since my through hike and got rid of so much more stuff. I did this on the Camino too. The same process happened. I came back from the Camino and I realized, I lived on the Camino for 6 weeks and here for 6 months with very little. It turned out to be 12 pounds here that I came back with base weight, and I'm like, why do I need all this stuff? And so it's been an interesting process of becoming, really, I'm at this point almost a minimalist, in certainly in my thinking, but also in what I have in my life too. So that's just kind of one of the things I learned that I thought might be valuable to everybody. And one other piece of advice for future hikers, if through hikers particularly, if you're not going to watch the whole thing, I wanted to put this right in the front, was, and this is going to seem contradictory to what I just said, but after you get your pack weight down as much as you think you can before you go on your hike, kind of take everything out and put it into piles of stuff you definitely need, things you're afraid you're going to need that you're going to take, but everybody says you probably won't need it, but you really think you do, and then the luxury items. And, kind of whittle it away. And then I really would suggest that you take one or two of the small luxury or fearful items that you probably don't need, but you think you may. Take one or two of those, lightest as possible, maybe, half a pound or so. Take that with you, because what I found is that it's a process. And if you go super lightweight from the beginning, you're going to be with people who are letting things go and saying, oh my gosh, I feel so great. I was able to let a pound go and it just feels great. And you're already going to be so close to the line that you're not going to be able to let anything go. And so what you start with, the weight you start with, is going to feel like a burden. So it's kind of a psychological thing. If you can just take a little bit extra, that you can, you get to a shelter, you're like, I didn't need that 3-ounce thing, let it go. Put it in a hiker box or mail it home. I think it'll just psychologically make you feel like, hey, I'm loosening up, I'm learning something, I'm lightening my load, and it feels lighter, even if it's just a few ounces. I really think that even though it seems contradictory to what I said about lightening your load before, I think it will serve you in the process along the way. So that's kind of my general advice for everybody. So now I want to get into all of the details, and it looks like it's getting dark already here in New York, so I might have to do some of this inside, but here we go. So these are the items that I wore or had on my person that don't count in my base weight for the most part, except for this piece, the Arc'teryx, and this was my kind of jacket that you saw throughout. I loved this piece of clothing. This was my favorite kind of go-to thing that I would put on for a little warmth. It served me so well, and I actually didn't use my puffy jacket too much at all. I did in the beginning, but I didn't use it at all at the end, and I didn't even get it sent back to me at the end because this mid-weight jacket here from Arc'teryx really served me well. And I can't remember the name of it. I think it's in my earlier video, but Arc'teryx is really high quality. It's expensive, I'll admit, but I found that very valuable. The Darn Tough socks are right here. I don't, as I've said before, I don't know why you would get anything other than Darn Tough socks because they have that 100% guarantee return policy. If they get a hole in them, they will return, they will exchange them, no questions asked. And along the trail, you can actually exchange them at outfitters and at trail days. So they had a representative at trail days. All you did was bring your socks over to them, and they would give you a brand new pair if you had a hole in them. And I did it once. I did it in Vermont. Took me to get to Vermont before I had a hole, and they exchanged it no problem at an outfitter there. And then I did another pair when I got home. I had another pair that I had taken on the Camino with me, lasted 3 years, but had a little hole in them. I sent them in the mail, and they sent me a new pair. So I can't recommend Darn Tough socks enough. They are expensive, but when you think of the fact that you're never going to have to buy another pair of socks, I think it's well worth the expense. The Ex Officio underwear there to the left is, I highly recommend it. I didn't have this in the beginning. I had more of kind of a brief, I think I had icebreaker briefs, but I was chafing. And these somebody recommended, and they worked extremely well. So Ex Officio boxer briefs. The Columbia pants to the left are they're the what do they call them? Convertibles. So I had the bottoms to them, but I would often take them off. And these, I went through about 3 different pairs of pants. If you watch the videos, you'll see I started out with different ones and changed a few times. These were the ones I had in the Camino, and for some reason I didn't want to take them on this hike, but I ended up for the last 2 months with them because they're just the best. And I really, I used them with the bottoms a lot. You saw me, people actually question, like, why aren't you hiking more in shorts? And I'll be honest with you, it's because partially I was afraid of the ticks. I really didn't want to get Lyme disease, and whenever I would be with shorts, I was worried about that, and I did get bit. I guess I removed 2 or 3 ticks along the way when I had shorts on. When I had long pants, I didn't have that problem. So when it wasn't excruciatingly hot, I would wear the bottoms. It also helped in the evenings because you get really muddy and dirty, and you have to wash your legs off before, well, I did at least, before I'd get in my sleeping bag because I didn't want to get my sleeping bag all dirty. I didn't go with a liner to save weight, so I would wash my legs off, excuse me, if I had shorts on. But with wearing long pants or the convertibles with the bottoms attached, you just didn't have to do that. So I like those, and Columbia really makes a great convertible pant, so I recommend those. Above that is the icebreaker shirt. I went through, I guess, 2 or 3 icebreaker shirts. I had a long sleeve one in the beginning, which I loved, and then I switched to a short sleeve one, and then I switched it out when I came to New York to this one here. My Costa hat there, that is actually, it's a little embarrassing, but I loved that hat so much. I got it in Franklin, right? And I had to wash it because it stunk so bad. So every week or so I'd have to put it in the wash. Whenever I was in a town, I would put it with the rest of the stuff. But it got really kind of destroyed in the wash. So I actually had to buy 2 other ones along the way. You can see that's kind of new. That was, I think that's the one I ended with. And I had only had it like 2 weeks on the trail or something. So I did go through a few of those. I wanted the consistency of the same hat along the way, especially with the videos. I just felt it made some sense to have the same hat. So I just bought new ones that were the same exact model. The Garmin, the watch here that I've talked about before, again, I don't think I would do this again. It didn't really help me in any way other than to tell the time. I mean, it does have an altimeter and a barometer, but I didn't really use them. And the one thing I really wanted it for was the steps. And I don't know if a Fitbit or other stepping kind of pedometer would work on the trail, but this certainly didn't without the GPS engaged. It has a GPS on it, but if you engage it, you have to charge it every single night pretty much, or every 2 days. And I just didn't have enough. I was so worried about having enough charge that I didn't want to waste it on a watch. So the pedometer works without the GPS in the normal environment, like walking around New York City. I got accurate readings, but the minute you have inclines, declines, going over mountains, it just doesn't work. It was just so far off from the actual mileage that I just found it pretty useless. So I would not take that. These were just from one of these was from my brother, and this one was from the Camino that I kept along the way. Just kind of like sentimental little luxury items. And then my sticks, and these are ones. Some people noticed that I switched my sticks out, and I didn't talk about it. I went with the Alpine Light Black Diamond poles that I had actually used on the Camino too. So they had about 3,000 miles, 2,500 or 3,000 miles on them when I went. And about Vermont, one of the it started slipping here. One of these it would be fine, and then I would push on it too hard and it would slip and go in, and I'd have to stop and fix it. And I still have the poles. They're still great poles. I just needed to get it fixed, and I didn't have the time to go to an outfitter and hope they had a part to change it and everything. So I just got these sent to me from Amazon. That's another thing, people, that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of, but Amazon is an amazing resource for anything you need. I had things sent to me throughout the trail. Once I knew where I was going to stay, I would try to book a hostel that accepted mail drops 2 days before I was going to be there. And then I'd go to Amazon if I had service in the woods, order my stuff, and do overnight delivery. So it costs a little bit, but I would do it if I really wanted things and have stuff there. It was really, really a great resource. These are the Lecky photo system, and you can see they have 3 locks. These poles get extremely high, and the tops come off here, so you can actually put a camera on top of this. There's a screw underneath this that you put a camera on, and you can set up the camera and then move it to film. And I thought, because I was vlogging my thru hike and taking so many selfies, or those kind of Survivor Man walkthroughs, that I would use them, but it really isn't necessary. They're very expensive. I think they were $150 each, so they're probably double the price of a good set of other Leckys that don't have this photo system. And while I like them a lot, and would go with another pair of Leckys in the future, I just don't think you need this photo system. It didn't really work for my purposes, because you had to stick it in the ground, but then it would wobble because there's only one point of contact with the ground. So I didn't find them useful for my purposes. But that's everything I pretty much had on my body. So let's go to the next piece, to my bag. So I want to talk about my bag, my Z-Packs Art Blast. But before I do, I did want to mention 3 items that I carry the entire way that I don't think you need. One is the lip balm, the sunblock, and then the sunglasses. And what I would say is, maybe take them along. Maybe these are the items that you take that you're happy to get rid of if you can, because I found that I did use the sunglasses a few times, but not enough to justify carrying them the whole way. And I feel the same thing about the sunblock and the lip balm. I really didn't use them too much. The few times that you're out from the cover of the Green Tunnel, when you're in New Hampshire, you might need it a little bit in the whites, because there's so much above tree line. But for the most part, I didn't use it. So at the end, after New Hampshire, I got rid of that. I didn't carry those 3 things. The Cascadias, I talked a lot about them along the way, so I'm not going to go into details with them, but I did like them, and I will comment again on the Pedag, P-E-D-A-G insoles. These are the sport insoles, which served me extremely well. There's still some life in these Cascadias. I think these I had for 350 miles, and you can see pretty common. This place is where it's weak. Goes through the outer mesh, not the inner mesh. It's kind of packed down a little bit. Typical use passage patterns here. But I think I still may take these. I think they have a couple 100 miles. I may take them on my summer expedition, which I'm kind of in the process of planning now. So that gets me to my backpack, which served me very well. And as I said in my mid-hike gear review, was my favorite piece of gear then, and it's still my favorite piece of gear, I'm happy to say, even though I had some problems with it. And I did want to tell you what happened. The last week, things started falling apart. It was so time for this thing to be, my hike to be over. So if you know from my videos, I would keep my tent in these 2 latches here. Well, about 3 days before the end, all of a sudden I felt my tent fall off and hit my leg. And I got this out, I couldn't believe it. So the Cuban fiber had actually ripped, had torn here and gone down and stripped. So I couldn't use this anymore. And with only 3 days left, though, I wasn't that worried. I just put my tent up above. I put it on the straps on the top. And you can see that in some of my last videos, how I was wearing the tent on the top. And that's the reason why. I wrote to Z-Packs actually and said, asked them about this. I said, I just wanted to tell you guys, is this common or whatnot? And they wrote back and they said, this is not common. They don't see this a lot, but it makes sense because it is, Cuban fiber is actually layered, apparently. So anyway, I'm not complaining. They said that I could send it back and they could try to do stuff with it. I was like, whatever. I don't care. I'm throwing this away. This pack smells so bad. Like, it's beyond. I had to actually take it out of my apartment because it smelled so bad, and it's been in my storage unit in the basement of the building, and every time I get within 10 feet of it, I can smell it. And what happened was, it's not just the normal thru hiker smell. What happened was, it took on water. And this is the one thing that I do have to warn people about, because a lot of people think that Cuban fiber does not take on water, and it does, or can. So I didn't have any problems in the beginning, but what happens, I think, is small holes are formed, and you don't even know that it's happening, but then you set it down on the wet grass or something that's wet, and it will soak up water. So there was a few times where in between, I didn't even know it was happening, in between this and my liner bag, which I had, and thank God I had my liner bag, or I could have ruined my sleeping bag, excuse me, there was a little pool of water that had pooled. In the end, I didn't notice this in the beginning at all. It was only after I got to New Hampshire. So the bag had gone through almost 2,000 miles of really good use. So, and it's possible that it snuck through some of these areas here. So you do get this kind of wear. But for a lightweight bag, this is to be expected. I think this held up so wonderfully. There was one other thing that happened, though. Right after that happened, the next day, and I got to get it out of here, the poles that form the frame, trying to get the pole. These were the Cuban fiber or carbon fiber poles that went in here. They actually ripped through. Let's see, where did they come through? One of them came through here. Let's see. I can't remember exactly. Oh yeah, it's kind of here. You can see it's poking through. This one's poking through. The other one came through, and I was walking along. It was 2 days to go to Katahdin, and this started poking me in the back. So the bag was kind of falling apart. I wrote to Z-Packs about this piece too, and they said, and I'd heard other people on the trail complaining about this, that this had happened to other people. And so I wrote to them and asked them, and they assured me that this has been changed. These carbon poles, which apparently were breaking, I didn't have any problem, but they were breaking. They've been changed, and they've also reinforced this area here, so this poke-through stuff doesn't happen. And that's one thing I will say about Z-Packs that I really appreciate, and I think Joe Valesco's built an amazing company. You know, the difference between Z-Packs and other companies that are doing these ultra lightweight packs and tents is that they continually try to improve them. Not that the others don't, but I find that Z-Packs really does a great job of constantly, annually updating their bags so that they fix these little things that can, they can really affect you on the trail if they happen. So the other thing that's great about the Z-Packs bag, there are a lot of other Cuban fiber bags on the market, but this bag has the system, the carbon fiber. It's not carbon fiber anymore, but they have the system so that it's not resting on your back. Most Cuban fibers don't have this stay system, or this, I don't know what they call it, the arch system that keeps the actual bag off your back, because those bags, and I took one of those on the Camino with me the first time, and I sweat so much that it was just disgusting. Every time I would take the bag off my back, and I got a lot of acne because of it. And so I really appreciated this this system here, and it's the only Cuban fiber bag system or lightweight bag system I know of that has this kind of a form. So Favorite piece of gear, highly recommended. I think those of you that are watching a lot of Thru Hiker videos, you've seen how it's grown over the years. Redbeard was one of the first, and I think he was, I don't know if he's working for Z-Packs at the time, probably was, but he's certainly working for them now. Since him, last year, more people used these bags, and then this year I was following other thru hikers along the way, as you know, and I would say half of the thru hikers on YouTube are using this bag. So there's a reason for it. It's a good one, and it's super light. All right, before I talk about the rain gear, I wanted to talk about camp shoes, and these are the camp shoes that I had. I had them sent to me halfway through the trail, and they're in my mid-hike gear review. I think I mentioned the name because I'm forgetting the company right now. And they were good. They're a little heavy, though. I was surprised. They're thin, but it's a heavy, durable rubber they're made out of, so they're heavier than I would like. I think the flip-flops that I bought at Walmart for 97 cents were actually they're certainly cheaper, and I think they were lighter. So I might next time just go with keep the Walmart flip-flops that I had from the beginning. As far as the rain gear goes, I've said a lot about rain gear in my mid-hike gear review, kind of explaining the philosophy of it and like the fact that you're just not going to be dry no matter how hard you try. I thought that I was going to beat the odds by spending a lot of money on rain gear and I had that Arc'teryx, really great rain jacket in the beginning. And then this Z-Packs one here, which is what I ended with. And both of them did a fine job, but what I learned is that you really aren't going to stay dry. That rain gear really, truly is just for keeping you protected from hypothermia. You're going to get wet, if not from the rain coming down on you. You're going to get wet from the sweat that you're producing because these things don't breathe. And I know a lot of them say they breathe, but it's so relative. I mean, it's not noticeable if they do. So, excuse me. So this is what I ended with. I got this in Virginia at some point, sent to me, and it was perfectly fine. The only thing I will say is that this is the Z-Packs one. They have a new one now that's blue. I don't know how different it is. It's about the same weight. It did the job. I think there's cheaper ones. This was $300, which I think is a little pricey. I know a lot of people had the outdoor research one. I forget the name of it, but it goes for about $150, and then a lot of other people had the Frog Tugs, which you can get a set for like $40. They weigh a little more, but if price is a real issue, this might be one area to save some money. And then I did have the Z-Packs pants, rain pants in the beginning, but I switched to this is the rain kilt. I switched to that to save a little weight toward the end. And then I did carry my pack cover the whole way. Don't know, some people claim it's not needed. I mentioned before the water issue that I had in my pack, and it was only at the end, and it was because I think I had some holes in the Cuban fiber. But that being said, I think this still was needed. And then I did carry these gloves, the shell gloves from Z-Packs, through the end, just in case it got rainy and cold in the Maine and New Hampshire areas. So that's it for the rain gear. All right, so these are the items that I had on the outside of my pack, starting with my tent, which was the Z-Packs duplex tent with the Cuban fiber footprint. I had originally thought I was going to take a Tyvek footprint to put my tent over, but when I weighed it, I realized it weighed so much that I spent the money to get the 3.5 ounce a ground sheet from Z-Packs. And it's one area, it definitely makes it a little, it protects the floor of your tent a little bit, and it actually keeps mud and rain out of your tent. If you're having a really rainy, muddy night, it can help with that. But I don't know, to be honest, if my next hike, I'm going to try to go under 10 pounds. I'm going to try to go ultra lightweight. I think that would be one thing I would get rid of. And just a comment about the duplex. I loved this tent. The only issue I had in the beginning was with the condensation. And I heard a lot about single wall tents collecting a lot of condensation, that sort of thing. And so, I had this ShamWow, which I would use. This weighs like 8 ounces, and I would just have it next to me at night and wipe down the tent when I got up in the morning, or if I got up in the middle of the night if there was any condensation, and it seemed to work really well. So what I was worried about being a real big issue really wasn't, especially when I saw that other people that had two-walled tents didn't seem to have much less condensation than I did. So for the weight and the space, it's a phenomenal tent. It is pricey, much like other Z-Pack stuff, but you really get what you pay for, and I would say that it's an excellent, excellent tent. All right, so that goes to the water system. I used the Sawyer Squeeze, the regular size, and I did the hack, which I mentioned in my other videos, so I could make this a gravity flow system. And I actually took a little video on the trail of me using it because somebody had asked how it actually works. And I didn't actually put it in the video because the videos around the time I took it got so long that I didn't want to make them really long. So I will put that video at the end of this. So look for that. And then this is the Evernew bag. This is the 2-liter or the 1.5, yeah, the 2-liter Evernew bag. This lasted me the whole trip. I still can't believe that this bag lasted me the whole trip. It was amazing. I highly recommend Evernew. This was the UltraPod. This is what I did all of my walkthroughs with, where I would set up my camera, walk through, you know, my intros where I'd walk through and then I'd go back, get my camera. This is what, and it was great. We had this Velcro would go wrap around a tree or whatever. This is a great little easel there. And then the you know, the hand sanitizer. There was some toilet paper in there, and then my trowel, which I don't know if I would take the trowel again. I could use a stake, or I could use the end of my my pole, but it was 0.6 ounces, and I said, oh, I just kept it. But I don't know if I want to go ultra lightweight. It's one of the things I would probably get rid of. I'm going to do the rest of these segments in my apartment, and I forgot to mention when I was talking about my bag, the bag liner, which was the Z-Pack's Cuban fiber liner here. Served me very well, particularly when I got to New Hampshire and Maine, and my bag started taking on moisture and water, which I didn't even know was happening. I was really glad to have this liner, which protected my sleeping bag and clothes. That being said, I don't think you necessarily need to spend the money on the Cuban fiber liner. You can just use a thin trash compactor bag, which most of my friends did and were fine with. So maybe if you're looking to cut some corners financially, that would be one thing I would suggest you do. Just use a trash compactor bag. This sleeping pad is probably the most popular sleeping pad among thru hikers on the AT. It's the Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite, and with good reason. It's an amazing pad. It's really comfortable. I'm a side and stomach sleeper generally. Mostly on the trail, I was a side sleeper because it's really hard to sleep on your stomach in the woods, but on the floor, on the ground there. But this is really good on the hips, particularly for side sleepers, and it's also extremely light. I think it's one of the lightest pads out there. So highly recommend the Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite. And as I mentioned in my mid-hike review, they actually, I started getting some, the baffles, and it started coming out, and I called Thermarest. They replaced it. I got a new one a week later, and that's the one I ended with, the new one they sent me. In the meantime, I had been using a Sea to Summit one, which was fine, but it wasn't as comfortable, and it made a lot more noise, actually. So I was glad to get this Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite back. And then as far as the pillow goes, not everybody's going to take a pillow, but I did. It's the Xped pillow, which I found extremely comfortable. I liked, that was my luxury item. I think it was 2.5 ounces, maybe it was 3 ounces. It was worth it to me because I didn't take a lot of extra clothes, so I wouldn't have a pillow of any substance. So I was glad I had that and just blew it up every night. As far as the food bag goes, it was the Z-Pack's Cuban Fiber Bear Bag System, which, as I mentioned in my mid-hike gear review, it's the one piece of Z-Pack's equipment that I think probably, at least for people with multiple, if you're taking more than 4 days worth of food, you need to get a different bag because this one is just not equipped to, these are just not big enough or strong enough to, I would say anything more than 8 or 9 pounds, you're possibly gonna have problems. It fell down off of a bear system, one of these bear poles at one of the shelters. It fell down in the middle of the night when I was coming out of Irwin, I believe, because it was just too heavy and they just couldn't hold it. So that was my only complaint about that. I would say that having Cuban fiber was great. No mice got through it. No critters got into it. And other than that, what I just mentioned, I really did like that the bear bag. All right, in the bear bag food bag system, I also had my Optimus spoon, which Joe Brewer is the one that gave me the idea for that one, that smooth spoon, which I really did like. Didn't use it so much actually when I got rid of my stove and did the cold cooking. Because I didn't even really cook. And I'll show you that at the end. I'll talk about my food options at the end because a lot of you had questions about how I was eating without a stove. And then this little knife that I had here, it was just a little, the lightest I could find, little pocket knife there, and didn't really even use it very much. I think you can even go through the whole trail without a knife. But at any rate, sleeping bag. This is not the bag that I had my sleeping bag in. I had it in a Z-Packs, what is this, a dry bag. But this is not the right size, so I just used it there for an example. But I had to throw the bag I had my sleeping bag in out because it smelled so bad. But anyway, I went with the Western Mountaineering Alpine Light 20-degree bag is what I started with in Georgia, and it served me very well. And I also ended with it. I had it sent back to me in halfway through New Hampshire, I guess. I had my parents send it back because I was worried about the temperatures in Maine and New Hampshire. And I actually didn't need it. I could have gotten away with the 40-degree bag, but if you're going to be out in Maine and New Hampshire after September 1, I probably you will need to go back to your thicker, your lower degree bag because it can get cold in the evenings. I just got fortunate in my time period. So that's it. And I really did, to go into it again, I really did like the Western Mountaineering bags. I think they're well constructed and well made. All right, so on to the next piece. This was the next bag, which is kind of like my catch-all bag, or some people call it a ditty bag, which I had my electronics and first aid equipment, that sort of stuff in. But before I do, I had this in the last segment and forgot to talk about it. It's the Z seat from Thermarest, which Redbeard had given me this idea. He talked very highly of it, and I have to agree with him. This was a great piece to have. I put it down on a rock to sit down, put my bag on it if the field was wet to protect it a little bit. Or what I found it most useful for was at night outside of my tent, I would put it to get in and out of my tent, particularly if the ground was wet and muddy. It would just protect my legs from traipsing that into the tent. So that I found very useful. You don't obviously need to get the Z-Pack one. You can, the Thermarest one, you can just cut a pad from another sleeping pad or something that's cushy like that to sit on. But this I found very useful. All right, and let's talk about my first aid kit. Was basically, I started out with a lot more than I ended with. Had some little repair stuff here. I had a lot more when I started, but some tenacious tape, some Cuban fiber tape, and some stuff for a pad if my pad got a puncture. Didn't use any of it. This was my tick remover, which you need to take. I did use that, and interesting, I have a tick here. This is the first tick I removed. I don't know if you can see it there. I kept it because somebody had told me that if you get Lyme disease or if you're feeling really bad, they can test the tick itself, so you should keep them. So I did keep the one. There were two others that I removed along the way, and I didn't end up keeping them. I don't know why. I just forgot to at that point. But at any rate, I had that one, and I was a little surprised to find it as I was going through this stuff. But onward, this is my sewing kit. I would just have needle thread here. Didn't really use it too much. I did use it on blisters early on, but then I didn't really have any blisters after the first couple weeks. Very minimal bandages and kind of alcohol swabs. Started out with a lot more of this and didn't really need it. And what you realize is you're going to be in a town at the most with it 4 days is the longest stretch I went without being in a town. So anything you need, you can really resupply in that time. So you don't have to be as fearful as I was early on and carry multiple like I think I had like 40 bandages. You just don't need any of that. Same thing goes for medicine. I didn't really use a lot of medicine either. And what I found was when I needed something, I would just buy it in the next town I got to. But I did have a few of these things, and I got this idea from Joe Brewer to get these little bags. You can buy these little bags on Amazon. I got like 100 for $4 or something. And you put a little strip in here, what it is, and just put a small amount of the medicine in there. And most of these I had the entire time, didn't even use them. I did the Aleve or the ibuprofen, I did replace multiple times, but most of these I didn't. And this is melatonin. This was very good. I love melatonin sublinguals. to help me sleep sometimes. If I was having a hard time sleeping, I would use that. These are the earplugs, which are kind of the world's greatest earplugs, and they're the best earplugs I've ever used. I got them on Amazon. You can find them. It's called the world's greatest earplugs. They really do block a lot of the sound. This is a silicone toe cap, they're called, and these are amazing if you have a blister on a toe. You just put this over your toe, then put your sock on, and it just protects the blister a little bit. You don't have as much pain, and the blister doesn't get worse. Obviously, toothpaste, toothbrush, insect repellent. I had the natural stuff, and this was kind of my backup. I ran out of the natural stuff. I bought this because I didn't want to carry a big thing. I was toward the end, and I didn't use this once in New Hampshire or Maine. The bugs fortunately weren't too bad up there. Or they weren't dive bombing me like they were in the mid-Atlantic states. And then this was a bug net, which I used a little bit in the mid-Atlantic states and Vermont, but not much in other places. All right, let's go. Before I get to the electronics, let's talk about this. This is the hand sanitizer, which I had on the outside of my pack on the strap in the front, so easily reachable, and I use that all the time. And then these are those, I talked about these in my mid-hike gear review, I think, these little, I would wet these and they turn into wet towelettes, use them in my food bag after meals, but would also use them at night to kind of just towel down, particularly if I got really dirty or muddy during the day. Invaluable, because they don't weigh much and they don't take up much space. Okay, so the electronics, let's talk about this. The stick pick. I ended up not using the stick pick too much. I did in the beginning. If you followed me the whole way, you know I did a lot of like the more traditional selfie stick pick kind of walk and talk videos in the beginning, and then I just wasn't comfortable doing them, and I was just, people seemed to like seeing the trail a lot more, so I did more kind of outward views than kind of views at me, and just use my intros and my walkthroughs as kind of me in the environment. So I didn't really use this much, but I did carry it the whole way thinking I might use it more, and I really didn't. So I probably would not take this again. Even at the end when I did the camera looking at me going up Katahdin to where I saw the sign for the first time, I just held my camera out at a distance on me is all I did. I didn't really need a stick pick. This is my watch charger, which, as I mentioned before, I wouldn't take it again. This is the charger for my iPhone. This is the Svance 10,000 mega amp. I think that's the measurement, mega amp or megajoule charger, which is all I needed. And I have to say, I used electronics, my phone, more than anyone else I know on the trail because I took so many videos. I took, for each of those video segments you saw, each of the the 8 or 9 minute videos, I had probably an hour and a half of video that I cut down from. So that's how much video I was taking. And when I wasn't using the video, I was on my phone with audiobooks or music or a podcast, listening to that. So I was always using my phone, and I never ran out of charge. There was one time I got close. I'd been out for 4 days, and I got close, but I made it in, and I didn't have to sacrifice any good shots or anything like that because I was out of memory. So I think 10,000 is really all you need. This was $17.99 on Amazon. Highly recommend it, especially because it really does the trick, and it was the lightest weight of all the chargers. And I tried out like 4. This was the lightest one and the cheapest one. This is my headlamp. This is the Phoenix HL50. Got this idea from Cricut. It's a really great high-powered light. I took the battery out, but it is an amazingly high-powered light. If you're going to do a lot of night camping, I recommend it. If you're not going to do a lot of night hiking rather, which I did not do really any night hiking except for one night at the end there with the guys when we were in the 100-mile wilderness. Maybe for an hour we were hiking at night. And what was interesting I found in that doing that was the ground actually it kind of sends off this glow. So we didn't even use our headlamps. It's quite fascinating. But at any rate, around camp, I would just use my phone as a lamp. I would use the light on my phone around my tent, and if I was in the shelter, I would use it there too. It's all really I needed. So I don't know if you need to go all out with the light unless you're going to do a lot of night hiking. So that's it for the kind of catch-all bag. Let's go to the clothes. So this was what I came home with in my clothes bag, which was cut down tremendously from what I went with, which I was very proud of, and I probably could have cut it down even more. But as we go through it, I'll tell you kind of what I think I could have done without. That first thing there is a bandana. Some friends gave that to me before I left. I had it the entire way, the black bandana there. You need something like that to wipe up sweat, and that's easily accessible. So I would keep it in my pocket or on a strap of my backpack. Very valuable. The next thing there is a buff that I used as a pillowcase. And Cupcake gave me that idea back in Irwin, and I used it every night after that. It was so nice to kind of have something soft against my face at night and something that didn't take up smell because I could throw it in my wash with my clothes whenever I got to town. So that was really a nice kind of hack, I guess. The socks there, I was in a town and I needed something for my sleeping bag. I didn't have socks for my sleeping bag, and I really didn't want to bring my hiking socks and put my hiking socks in my sleeping bag. So I bought these. They obviously in this town didn't have Darn Tough, or I would have bought them, but these served the purpose. Those are my Sophie running shorts, Soffe. I got them on Amazon. They're about $11. I love these shorts. They are shorty shorts. They look like 1970s kind of shorts, but it's all the rage in the thru hiker community to have those 70s like shorty shorts. I would use them around camp and to sleep in, and in towns when it was really hot. These are super lightweight, super inexpensive. I got them on Amazon for $11. Few people have written to me since my mid-hike gear review and said thanks, because those are exactly what I was looking for, and I didn't need to spend $40, $50 on a pair of running shorts. So, and I think Tom Willard told me that they are military shorts. They're running shorts for the military, and they call them silkies. That's what he had told me. A little fun fact there. This hat was my kind of felt, or what do they call it, fleece hat. It's by the Mouse Works, and I loved this hat because not only was it a warm fleece hat, but it had this extra wide brim, which I would use when it got light out and I wanted to sleep, or if I was in a hostel and the light was on, I would just pull this down over my eyes, and I had eye shades. It was amazing. I highly recommend you getting a hat that has that dual purpose with the wide band there. And then the last two things were my sleeping clothes. This was a Rab long sleeve. I guess it was. It's merino wool. And then my Icebreaker merino wool long johns. I used both of these the whole way, and I'll tell you why. I could have done without these. A lot of people slept with nothing in their sleeping bag, or they slept in their hiking clothes. And to be honest, I just didn't want the smell in my sleeping bag. I didn't want to kind of have a really dirty sleeping bag, because you can't wash the sleeping bags, or you can, I guess, but it's a big process for a down sleeping bag to put it in the wash. So I would sleep in these. The great thing about merino wool is it's kind of cool in the summer and warmer in the winter. But if you're really looking to go super ultra lightweight, you could get rid of those and just either sleep in your hiking clothes or sleep in the nude. All right, so that's it with the clothes. So that's really it for my gear, other than my cooking, which if you followed me the whole way, you know that after New York, I got rid of my cooking apparatus and only ate cold food. But I started with this. I started with the Snow Peak titanium pots, the Camp Oil Micron Ion. I got this couple weeks into the trail. Really lightweight stove, very good. And I always had a ShamWow in here to kind of wipe up after meals. But I got rid of all this in New York and only ate cold food. And a lot of you had questions. What are you eating? How do you get enough to survive in the wilderness with just cold food? And so I actually did a video in Gorham, New Hampshire, at the Walmart when I was doing my food shopping. But I didn't have time to put it in one of the videos. They were getting too long around that point. So I didn't put it in one of those videos. So I'm going to show you now. This is what I ate when I got rid of my stove. So since I got rid of my stove, a lot of people have been asking how I'm getting my nutrition and how I'm eating. So I thought I'd just show you how you can eat without a stove. First of all, let's start with breakfast. Breakfast, I'll get like a coffee cake. And this is generally about a 3-day supply, 3.5 day. Coffee cakes, I eat one of these for breakfast. I also alternate with this with Pop-Tarts. Either way is really good. Sour Patch Kids. I usually get 2 of these, but I have one already. These are great for giving a little burst of energy when you're going up the hill, right at the bottom there, and you take those and they get you up the hill. For snacks, I do Quest bars, which I love, and these Gatorade whey protein bars. Each of them give you about 20, 22 grams of protein, and I'll eat 2 of those a day, so I'm getting 40 grams just from my snacks. Sociables. These crackers and the nut thin crackers are actually really good. They don't get crushed as easily as some crackers do. So I highly recommend getting those. And then as far as dinners go, I will do like a chicken fingers, which these are, gosh, I guess about a pound of chicken fingers. You don't even have to get them at the grocery store. You can get them at Wendy's or any kind of fast food joint. Usually sells that sort of thing. For after dinner, after lunch and dinner, I have my peanut butter M&Ms. I love those. I pack about 2 pounds of those. They go pretty quick. Potato chips. If you get kettle cooked potato chips, they will last. They will not get crushed. I mean, some will obviously, but they generally hold up pretty well. I always get new water bottles when I do a shop. That's just me, and recycle the old ones. You don't have to. There are some people that are still using the water bottles they started with, and the Mio lemonade flavor enhancer for water is something I really like. But this is my new thing, olives. I started this about 2 weeks ago, believe it or not. I don't pack out the jar. I drain this really well and then put the olives in 2 or 3 Ziploc bags, and they pack out really nicely, and it's a nice added treat to a lunch of or a dinner. And I should say, I didn't show you these. I will for lunch. I've used the tuna or my cheddar cheese with the sociable crackers, and that's kind of how I do it. So that's a quick lesson in hiking without a stove. This is one more video that I did early in my hike. I got a lot of questions about my Sawyer gravity fed system, the water filtration system, and how it worked. It's that hack that I got from Tom Willard, and it's a very simple, lightweight thing to do so that you don't have to squeeze your water through the Sawyer squeeze. It will work as a gravity filter, and it's an amazing thing. I recommend every thru hiker and every long distance hiker in general use this if you're taking the Sawyer squeeze as your water filtration. And I did this on trail, and it didn't make it to the videos. It ended up on the cutting room floor, so I thought I'd include it here. Basically what you do is I've created this little shock cord that I can hang from anything and put 2 little grommets in here in the water bag. Put the bag on, screw the Sawyer filter to the bag, and then this is that cyclone tube that I got on eBay that needs to be shaved down just a little bit up here to fit on. And you can see the water is just automatically filtering itself. I got to tell you, this system has been the envy of many a thru hiker who's using a Sawyer squeeze, because sitting there, most people are sitting there and squeezing the bag from the top like this to force the water through, and it gets really tiring really quick. So that's my water filtration system. So it's winter here in New York, and I thought it would be nice to end this video by taking everybody back to springtime in Virginia. This is taken on May 2nd, and it's when Sherpa Crow, Napster, and Mouse and I were hiking through these Virginia fields on this beautiful May day, and thought it was a nice way to end. But I did want to say, I hope this was helpful. I know that particularly for those of you planning a thru hike who have never been on a long hike, I know how overwhelming it can be, and how you want to make sure you have everything you need, and you don't want to leave anything out, but you don't want to have too much weight, and it gets really overwhelming. And I think don't stress it too much. My advice is that it is a process. When I went on my first hike on the Camino, I didn't need to take any food or cookware or a tent or a sleeping pad, and I still had a base weight of 24 pounds. And it was a process. I learned as I went, and I came back with 16 pounds. And then on my next Camino, I went with 14 pounds and came back with 11 pounds. And then on this hike, where I did need a lot more stuff, I started, as you know, with 15-pound base weight, and I ended, it was just over 12 pounds base weight. So I recommend, just having an attitude of acceptance and a willingness to let things go along the way. That's going to be the most important thing. If it's not serving you, let it go. It doesn't matter what it costs you. If it's a very expensive piece of gear, mail it home. If not, put it in a hiker box so somebody else can use it, but let it go. Uh, that's one of the great messages and things I learned on the trail. So until next time, bye bye.